You've scoured Pinterest, you've looked at all the Facebook groups, you're looking for all the things that you need to know before your first year teaching. Stop. You found it right here. There's about 1 million different things that everyone will tell you you need for your first year of teaching, and I've gathered up some ideas that I'm very, very excited to share with you. So let's go ahead and get right into it. My name's Anne Molesky. I help music teachers find inspiration and community so they can build active music making experiences for their students. We're gonna start off by talking about you. We're going to talk about your first or second or third year of teaching, or if you just feel like a new-ish teacher, that's great too. All of these strategies are really important to refresh yourself before going into the new school year. So I have 3 things to think about as you're thinking about yourself moving into the school year. And the first thing is that we should be excited. In all of my interactions with teachers and with student teachers, no one has ever told me that they became a music teacher because they really love talking about half notes. Half notes are their favorite thing ever. Or they just can't wait to talk about the pentatone. Or they can't wait to organize their classroom and put up a puppet or some flare pens. Although if we're being honest, that stuff can be pretty fun. But the reason that we become music teachers is because there is a part of us that just could not stay away. And we knew that music was important to our lives, and we wanted to bring that to the lives of others. And in particular, as an elementary music teacher, you get to bring it to the lives of children. Something that I think that's really important to remember is that with great power comes great responsibility. And what's so great about being an elementary music teacher, and also is a great responsibility, is that you might be the only music teacher that your students ever have. What I mean by that is that most elementary students, generally speaking, go to music every week. Once they get into middle school or high school, those classes tend to become electives. And so the only music classroom experience your students have in school might be in your classroom. Now, that can be scary, or it can just be so stinking cool. And it's the reason that you probably became a music teacher, because you wanted to make sure that you could show others how important and how transformative music can be. So it's really important that we find that spark and we stick with it so that we can be excited. So aside from that first piece about you, where you should just be excited for what's to come, even though there's some stressful things, is that with those stressful things, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Now, what do I mean by this? So as you know, we can talk about self-care, we can talk about bubble baths, we can talk about all those kinds of things. And those are great and important. We love them, love a good bath bomb. But what I'm really talking about is figure out where your boundaries are. Now, some of these are dependent on your position, on your school campus, all that good stuff. You can't say, peace out, I'm not doing bus duty or anything like that, because it's one of those conditions of your employment. But what I do mean is find those boundaries that you do have a little bit of control over and a little bit of say in. That might be as simple as not checking your work email outside of school hours or on the weekends. That might mean that you're going to set aside this time to lesson plan, and it's okay if it doesn't get done because you need to sleep before the next day. It might mean that you notice that your voice is getting very, very tired, which often happens to all of us in the first weeks of school, but particularly if you're in your early stages of your career. So maybe in that instance, you pivot from what you had planned for the next class and you come up with a lesson that's still some active music making, but it doesn't rely on you being as much of the teacher. I think taking the time to reflect on some things that you know will stress you out and coming up with some things proactively to make sure that those stresses are less likely to happen can be really beneficial. So knowing that every day when you get home from work, you want to take a walk and then you might take a nap. Knowing that every day when you get home from work, you're not going to check your email until the next morning. Knowing that you want to have this time for lesson planning and you're going to limit it. Because if we can be honest, all of these things can grow and grow and grow because we care so much about what we do. Something that I think has always been difficult about being a musician or a teacher musician is that so much of our identity, so much of what we love is wrapped up in our profession. And it's really, really difficult to draw a line in the sand versus what we love to do and what is our job. Part of that is creating these boundaries, and part of that is still nourishing yourself as a musician. So taking care of yourself is not just the self-care, making sure you're drinking water, not checking email after hours, getting enough sleep, but it's also taking care of your musical self as well. Find opportunities to play, find opportunities to make music, do something without pressure, and remember that music can be fun. So the last thing, at least for today, to think about in terms of yourself for your first year of teaching, aside from being excited, taking care of yourself, is to have a growth mindset. So what does that mean? I know when I teach undergraduate elementary music methods that I have, if I'm lucky, a semester where I see students 3 times a week for about 50 minutes. It is absolutely impossible to give a fully fleshed out version of what an elementary music classroom looks like within those time constraints. It's the case with other disciplines as well. There's no way to get through everything you could ever need to know about teaching a choir and choral methods. There's no way you can get a full comprehensive understanding of all the instruments when you're doing your methods classes. What we do as musicians and as teacher musicians is very nuanced. And so whatever you have on your shelf, whatever I have on my shelf, is not the limit, because the opportunities and the resources and the different ways that we can interpret lessons and songs and activities are infinite. So what does this mean? Have a growth mindset. Realize that what you have now is only the beginning, is only that starting spark. And aside from the types of things that you literally can grab and look at, realize that what happens in your classroom is only the beginning. If you're teaching a lesson and it flops, which happens to all of us, then take some time and reflect and be like, I wonder why that happened, and treat your classroom again as your laboratory and try to figure out how you can make it better the next time. Because the first time you do something, it's not going to be great. The second time you do something, it's going to be a little bit better. And by the time you get to those Friday lessons, poor Monday kids, those lessons are awesome. And you start to begin to understand what types of things really work for you in your classroom, and you can see that growth. So don't get discouraged. It's going to be hard, but you can do it, and you will do it, and you'll do it beautifully. So when it comes to you as a first-year teacher, remember to be excited, take care of yourself, and have a growth mindset.